Hello, I'm Jane Mangold from the Agricultural Research Service with an Eastern Oregon Ag Minute. 2 weeks ago, the Eastern Oregon Agricultural Research Center held a 3-day workshop on ecologically-based invasive plant management. 30 participants from Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Nevada, and California gathered to discuss how invasive weeds can be managed using the science of ecology. Just like an engineer uses the science of physics to build a strong, dependable bridge, weed managers can use ecology, the study of organisms and how they interact with each other and their environment, to build more reliable and sustainable weed management. Ecologically-based invasive plant management attempts to use our understanding of how weeds interact with other plants, grazing animals, insects, soil microbes, and abiotic factors like topography, precipitation, temperature, and light to manage them. Throughout the week, I'll be covering some of the information we covered in the workshop. Ecologically based invasive plant management focuses on the ecological processes that influence 3 conditions necessary for the composition of a plant community to change: site availability, species availability, and species performance. For a weed to invade, there must be an open site for that plant to establish. This is influenced by disturbance. Next, seeds of the weed must be able to reach that open site. This is influenced by seed dispersal mechanisms and individual seed traits. If the seed reaches the site and establishes, the weed must perform as good as or better than its neighbor to persist in the plant community. This is influenced by many processes, including water and nutrient cycling, stress, and interference mechanisms. If any of these 3 conditions aren't met, the weed probably won't become a problem. The challenge for you is to focus your management on preventing conditions conducive to weeds while encouraging conditions conducive for desirable plants. The availability of sites for colonizing weeds or desirable plants can be affected by natural and man-made disturbances. Disturbance damages or kills existing vegetation and opens up space for a new plant. Some examples include wild and prescribed fires, drought, floods, tilling or plowing, grazing, or herbicide application. Managers can vary the size, severity, frequency, and patchiness of a controlled disturbance as they attempt to control weeds and replace those weeds with more desirable plants that meet their land use objectives. Disturbance generally increases the availability of resources like water, nitrogen, and light. Because weedy plants like lots of resources, they may take advantage of the situation more so than most of our native, late cereal plants like Idaho fescue and Thurber's needlegrass. You should limit the amount of disturbance to only what is necessary to control the weeds while encouraging desirable vegetation. Once disturbance has opened a space for a new plant to invade, seeds need to be available to occupy that space. You can control colonization of the space and decide whether a weed or desirable species becomes established. In areas that are mostly weed-free and minimally infested by weeds, you should map any known weed infestations, then establish a line of defense to prevent weed seed dispersal into weed-free areas beyond that line. Focus on road and waterways and animal use patterns when looking for dispersal and spread. Cooperative efforts among you and your neighbors is necessary for a successful weed prevention program. In areas that are heavily infested with weeds, controlled colonization of desirable plants must be implemented. This involves some type of controlled disturbance, followed by reintroducing plants that meet your land use objectives. For example, if you're trying to manage a Russian knapweed-infested meadow that contains less than 20% cover of desirable plants, you may apply a broadleaf herbicide, followed by drill seeding competitive grasses and forbs. We have talked about site availability or controlled disturbance and species availability or controlled colonization. Today I will cover species performance. Controlling species performance means you try to hinder the growth and vigor of weeds while enhancing the growth and vigor of desirable plants. Many traditional weed management strategies attempt to do this, like herbicides, grazing, biocontrol, and mowing. Careful selection and timing of your weed control techniques can target the weed while having minimal impact on desirable plants. As you prepare your weed management plans, Carefully consider how your chosen techniques address the 3 conditions necessary for plant community change. To successfully shift the composition of the plant community from that of weeds to that of desirable plants, you must consider site availability through controlled disturbance, species availability through controlled colonization, and species performance through controlled species performance. If you'd like to learn more about ecologically based invasive plant management, please give us a call at EOARC.